Just how much does SEO cost per month? So many of my clients wonder what SEO costs per month. What does it cost me? Why is it so expensive? And every time I have to answer this question, I've always wanted to pull out a cardboard sign to emphasize why SEO is so expensive. Why a cardboard sign? Well, cardboard signs are, of course, a ubiquitous example of the poor man's hard times. So beaten down by asking, he resolves to basically just scribe his needs and desires for all to see, like an early form of display advertising, and hopes that somebody will simply lend a hand. Personal injury attorneys do not advertise with cardboard signs, and if they do, steer clear. Neither do surgeons, or dentists, or plumbers worth their proverbial salt. If they did, you'd have to wonder, is this guy so hopelessly terrible at what he does that he can't even afford to get his message out properly? What would it cost to get the message out properly? And if it was out properly and it converted people into clients or customers, what would he make in return? To better drive home this point, we must first state the number one first law of marketing. You should be able to spend $1 and make $2 predictably, and then scale. If you can't do that, you're not marketing. If you can't do that, you don't have a business. Now, this ultimate truism of marketing is oddly one that so many have seldom, if ever, experienced from their own marketing. Marketing is not supposed to be an expense. Marketing should be a predictable way to find business, where you pay X dollars and you make Y dollars, such that Y is more than X, and ideally substantially greater, right? Spend $1 and make $1.25, and then you could scale that. Heck, that's a 25% return on investment right there. That's not bad. Spend $100, make $125. Spend $1,000, make $1,250. Then you tweak it and you test it and you improve that return on investment so that that $1 in ad spend equals $2 in ROI, then $4, then $8, etc. Nobody wants to spend $1,000 on a hope and a dream, and that's the ultimate hurdle in sales. Heck, that's why we have so many testimonials and reviews on our website to help people overcome skepticism and doubt. But everyone would spend $1,000 to make $2,000 back. And most people, having made $2,000, would then want to spend that $2,000 again to make $4,000, and so on. The point being, marketing generally should behave as a predictable multiplier of investment. Now, consider the attorney we mentioned above. If you were to go to Google and you were that attorney and you wanted to place a bid so that your ad would show up in front of people who were actively looking for you, you could expect to pay between $70 and $140 per click. Now, bear in mind, it may take 10 to 50 clicks to get a lead, that is to say someone who raises their hand and simply says, I'm interested in your services, and it may take 10 to 20 leads to get a client. So $70 times 25 clicks on average times 15 leads on average, let's just say, is about $26,000 per client. And before you wonder too much, the prices do go up beyond $300 a click in some areas. Why? Why, oh why, would an attorney be willing to pay $26,000 for a new client? Math. Because personal injury attorneys make bank. Personal injury attorneys can win mid-six figures easily and upwards of 7 to 8 figures depending upon the lawsuit, and the attorneys definitely take a fair cut of that, oftentimes in exchange for no upfront fees and we only get paid when you get paid sorts of promotions, which usually means it's going to be a hefty split in the lawyer's favor. A split that may have cost a lot less if you would have just hired them out right up front, but for most people that's not even possible, and we're not here to talk about the actual practices of attorneys. Because one lawsuit can be worth that much, the invisible hand of the marketplace drives the cost of clicks up to a point where it still makes financial sense because of the law of averages, which says you will make back and then some whatever you put into the system, provided you're not a terrible attorney and you know how to cherry pick a couple of good winners. Now, let's look at one of these terms. Personal Injury Attorney Los Angeles and its corollary Los Angeles Personal Injury Attorney. Between the two of them, there's about 2,300 monthly searches for the two variants, each worth about $73 per click on average, or about $167,900 in advertising value per month, were each of those searches to be translated into a click on an ad, which admittedly they won't be. In fact, usually it's fewer than 10% of all clicks or searches wind up clicking on an ad. But being at the top of page 1 for a search like that could get you as many as 40% of all of the clicks to that search term. In fact, 90% of all people stay on page 1, and about 35 won't even scroll down to see the rest of page 1. They stay above the fold, so to speak. So what would it be worth to be in spot 1? From a purely ad cost basis, 40% of the 2,300 searches is about 920 clicks. At about $73 a click, that is $67,000 a month in what is essentially free advertising. These are clicks that simply happen because you're at the top of the organic, unpaid section of the search engine results. Now, if you were an attorney, what would that be worth to you? The answer is at least $60,000, $70,000 per month, right? Because that's free advertising. And what do you think an attorney would be willing to pay to get there? And what do you think an attorney would be willing to pay to stay there? What do you think another attorney would be willing to pay to beat him? That's the heart of the matter. That space is valuable. It really is much more akin to something like real estate. A hot dog vendor in Atchison, Kansas, a tiny little town, birthplace of Amelia Earhart, but about 7 square miles and about 10,000 people. A hot dog vendor in Atchison, Kansas will never make as much or sell as many hot dogs as he would if he were in Times Square. That's the heart of the matter. Now, that same space is worth a little less for other niches where they don't command as high of a price point, right? So a dentist maybe makes less, or a plumber, or even a restaurant, but it's still worth thousands of dollars in free advertising every single month, which is worth 2 to 3 times the amount that you would be spending in return on investment. So that $67,000 a month in free advertising is actually probably worth at least $250,000 in business to that law firm. And because it's worth a lot, it's an investment. And once that investment is completed, it continues to pay you again and again for months or even years, as opposed to pay-per-click marketing where stopping the paying is like shutting off a fire hose. Instantly, it's gone. So SEO is more akin to real estate. I can move your hot dog cart, your plumbing business, your dental practice, your law firm to your location's online version of Times Square, which is valuable because the traffic that is generated at that spot. So, how much should SEO cost? Well, first off, let's talk about the minimum wage. Now, this is not going to get overly political, but the federal minimum wage is sitting at about $7.25 an hour, although there's certainly higher in some states, and there's a big push for $15 an hour. I'm going to leave it alone for right now. The average fry cook at McDonald's who works part-time 20 hours a week makes, before taxes, about $580 per month. It's a part-time fry cook. Now, I've had numerous business owners tell me that they thought SEO wouldn't be very expensive, maybe around $500 a month. And every time I walk them through these above calculations, and every time I walk them through those calculations, I then ask you, do you think it's fair, let alone possible, that I deliver business-changing value that can mean $10,000 to $100,000 or more every single month in your pocket for less than a part-time fry cook at McDonald's makes? That's paying somebody 0.05% to 0.005% of value that they bring you. Then I ask them what they think it would cost to get on page 1 when others are spending $10,000 a month to get there for themselves. What is the cost to compete? And what kind of services do you think you would get for that kind of price? And then I ask this. Do you think that if somebody could deliver 6 to 7 figures worth of value to their clients, that they would ever even need to consider taking a job for $500 a month? Bear in mind, and you can hear my tone of voice here, I'm trying to convey this in a way that doesn't sound condescending. But if I can, at the click of my fingers, essentially command massive amounts of money and the direction in which it flows, do you think I would do that for $500 a month, for less than a part-time fry cook at McDonald's? No. And the fact is I couldn't do it, even if I wanted to, because there are guys out there who are getting paid $10,000, $20,000 a month to do SEO, depending upon the niche. I mean, if you're a flower seller, it's not going to be that expensive, right? But there are people who are just spending a ridiculous amount of money out there, and you have to be able to compete. And SEO is an always changing environment. It's not just about building the most backlinks. In fact, that can actually penalize your website at this point. Google's wised up to that. They've done just last year in 2015, Google did over 250 algorithm updates. And just to put that in perspective, there's like 252 business days or something like that in the 256 business days in the year. So that is pretty much one update every single day. You have to stay on top of that if you're going to do SEO, and you're going to do it well, and you're going to do it in a way that's lasting, and that makes a real difference for the business. So what's the moral of the story? The moral of the story is this: SEO isn't cheap. Anybody who tells you that it's cheap and that they can make you hundreds of thousands of dollars in additional income per month for $500 a month is either trying to sell you something and that something isn't SEO, or they're a magical leprechaun, in which case you should chase them down and catch them because they're a magical leprechaun. They probably have a bridge they can sell you on the cheap as well. And when I explain this to my clients, they usually get it and they usually hire me.